Last night started out like any other for me and my husband, Brian. We'd finished dinner, cleaned up the kitchen together, and curled up on the couch with glasses of wine in hand. It had become a little tradition of ours to spend Thursday evenings watching reruns of classic sitcoms, laughing at the same jokes as if it were the first time. I'd always loved those nights. They felt like home, comfortable, familiar and safe. But last night something was different. Brian had been quieter than usual, his brow occasionally furrowed, as if something heavy lingered in his mind. I noticed it halfway through the second episode of Friends, but didn't say anything right away. He reached over and gently held my hand, his fingers cool against my warm skin, and looked at me with those thoughtful, hazel eyes that first drew me in over a decade ago. "Amy," he began, his voice low but steady. "Can we talk?" There was a seriousness in his tone that made Dem sit up straight. My heart thudded in my chest, worried that something might be wrong. Health work family. I braced myself, of course. I said, trying to sound casual even though I felt anything but. He took a deep breath and paused the TV. "I've been thinking about us," he said, slowly. "Not that there's anything wrong, exactly. I love you more than ever, but I've realized something I've been holding back." I blinked, unsure what he meant. Brian had always been one of the most emotionally open men I'd known. Sweet, attentive, communicative. If there were walls up, he'd never shown them before. "What do you mean holding back?" I asked, shifting to face him more fully. His hand tightened around mine. "I've always tried to be the man I thought you wanted," he confessed, strong, steady, reliable. "But there's something I've wanted to share with you for a while. Something important to me." I just never knew how. I leaned in closer. My heart now pounding for a different reason. Curiosity. "Brian, you can tell me anything. You know that, right?" He nodded, then let go of my hand and stood up. He paced a little, then turned toward me again. "I want us to do something different. To try something that changes how we connect, how we see each other emotionally, mentally." I could see he was nervous, which made me nervous. "Okay," I said, stretching the word out, giving him space to explain. "I want to take a break from routine," he said. "I want us to have a night where we strip away everything familiar. No habits, no expectations, just us being honest, truly honest about what we feel, what we want." I sat quietly, letting his words sink in. It wasn't a bad request. In fact, it sounded like something a therapist might suggest to reignite connection. But the way he said, it made it feel like more. "Are you saying you want us to roleplay or something?" I asked, half joking, trying to lighten the air. He laughed, but it was short. "Not quite. I want to tell you things I've never said, and I want you to do the same. No judgments, just truth." He looked at me, and for the first time in a long while I saw a hint of fear in his eyes. Vulnerability that alone tugged at my heart. I nodded slowly. "Okay, let's do it." We turned off the TV set, down our wine glasses, and sat facing each other on the couch like two strangers meeting. Again, Brian started. "When we first met," He began, "I was terrified you were out of my league. You were smart, confident, and so full of life. I felt like a guy from a small town trying to keep up, but I wanted to be worthy of you." I smiled, touched. "I thought the same about you." I admitted, "I thought you were this gentle, grounded guy who had it all figured out. I was scared I'd mess it up." He grinned and leaned forward, encouraged. "There's more," he said. "Over the years, I felt like I had to always be the rock the strong own, but there were so many moments I was just as scared, just as confused. I just didn't know how to say it without feeling like I was letting you down." I reached out and touched his face gently. "You never had to be perfect for me. Brian, I've loved your flaws as much as anything else." Tears shimmered in his eyes. Then it was my turn. I told him about the days I felt unseen, not because of him, but because I didn't know how to ask for what I needed. I admitted how I sometimes envied the spontaneity we had in the early years. I told him how some days I missed the younger version of myself, the one who believed anything was possible. We talked for hours. It was raw, honest, and beautiful. And then Brian made the real request that changed everything. I want us to make a promise, he said. From now on, once a month we do this. We sit, we talk, we listen without fear, and no topic is off limits. I nodded, feeling an overwhelming rush of emotion. I'd love that. But he wasn't done. And I want to try new things together, not just talking new experiences. Whether it's a class, a trip, dancing in the kitchen, or learning something strange and wonderful. I don't want to be a couple that fades into routine. I want us to grow until we're old and gray and still surprising each other. That's when I cried, not because I was sad, but because I realized in that moment how rare and precious it was to have someone who cared enough to fight for evolution. Not just comfort. We held each other for a long time. Later, we put on music, slow old jazz tunes, and danced barefoot on the hardwood floor. The rest of the night felt like a dream. There was no plan, no expectation. Just two people rediscovering what they meant to each other. This morning, I woke up to find a note next to my pillow. In Brian's handwriting, it read, "Thank you. For last night you gave me more than you'll ever know." I tucked it into my journal, smiling like a teenager in love for the first time. Everything feels different now.